This review is for YESKAMO NVR security system that comes with 4 Wi-Fi cameras and a 16-inch monitor. So it is an 8-channel system, but it comes with 4 cameras, which means that you can add up to 4 more cameras for a total of 8. It is a 16-inch IPS monitor, which IPS stands for in-plane switching. There are many different types of monitors. That's just one. And if we look at the back here, you've got your 2 antennas there. And then behind this panel is where you would install the hard drive. And on the bottom, there's the power socket for the 12-volt adapter. We have 2 USB ports. There's an Ethernet port, an HDMI port, and then an audio out port. And looking at the back in a little more detail, there are some ventilation holes here at the top because the hard drive that goes behind this panel does generate some heat, so we have some vented slots there at the top. The monitor is adjustable a little bit. It does sort of rock back and forth, so you can adjust the angle there. And it does have some key slots here, so if you wanted to mount this to a wall, take these 2 screws out here, and this opens it up for the hard drive. And if you want to take this stand off, there's a single screw right there. You can take that off. Be real careful you don't drop it down inside the unit. Might want to turn it over as you're taking that screw out, so that if it falls, it'll fall down and out and away from going inside the unit. And then over here to the side, there's the power plug and then the SATA plug there for your hard drive. And the hard drive actually will use these 4 holes to secure it so that it's not in there flopping around. Now, one thing I did notice a little bit about this base, the unit's fairly stable, but it is a little top heavy, so it wouldn't take too much of a bump to knock it forward. And this base here really needs to stick out about another inch. It needs to come forward a little more. That's the only thing. I mean, it's fairly stable the way it is, but I would feel more comfortable if that base was just a little bit longer. Another thing, though, I always like to mention is anytime you get a system like this, as much as these are plug and play and the setup is really simple and fast, still it's a good idea to go through the user manual and familiarize yourself with the setup steps and all the features, because it's easy to miss something when you fly through the setup. And the same thing with this quick start guide. There's a lot of good information there, and you might save yourself some headaches if you go through this, familiarize yourself with the steps first. So that's my public service announcement about the documentation. We'll get the hardware box open here. All kinds of goodies. So we have a lot of strain reliefs for the wires. We've got some antennas, some concrete anchors, little screws, screwdriver, of course an Ethernet cable, and looks like an external antenna, and power extension cable. Look at that, it even comes with its own little mouse. That's nice. Some stickers, and then the power adapters. So there should be 1 for each camera, and then 1 main one for this unit here. Looks like we've got 5. So we'll take a look at those here in a little bit. And then the base of the camera, there's a little collar here that you loosen. It allows this to basically loosen up. You can pivot, swivel, adjust it to the right angle, and then when you get it there, you just tighten this collar down and it locks the camera in position. Alright, so I have the power on, and the mouse is plugged in. I plugged in the Ethernet cable, and I think I mentioned earlier that this was a touch screen. It actually is not. So that's why I use the mouse here, and this is the included mouse, which is a nice little feature. So the default username and password, we're just going to go ahead and leave those as they are. And now I can get everything set up. So now I'll walk through the various screens, getting the time and date, stuff like that set up. So now I get to the point where it's time to add the hard drive, and that requires me to take the back panel off here like I showed earlier. So I've attached the hard drive to the back of the cover there. It uses 4 screws. And I'm using a 1 terabyte, even though the manufacturer recommends a 2 terabyte for 4 cameras. All I have really available at the moment is a 1 terabyte, which should be fine. It just means it will overwrite data a little faster. Plus, I'm going to actually be adding a few extra cameras, so it'll overwrite the data even faster. So you get the cords plugged in here, and you can see on the screen it's giving you the option to format it, which I'll have to do since this drive needs to be formatted. So we'll get the screws back in and then see what's going on there. I might have to restart it so that it recognizes the hard drive, because I'm just now putting it in. So let's see if it gives me an option. I can go back a step, forward a step. Yeah, so it looks like you need to put the hard drive in first, but that's okay, so I'll come back to that. Now the next screen here, this is if you do not have the app already installed on your Android or iPhone. You would do the scan here, and it would go ahead and put the client on your phone. I've already got it on my Android and my iPhone, so I can skip this step. Alright, so the screen I was just at, you can right click in here, and this gives you your drop down menu with your options. And what I did is I clicked on Exit System, and it gives you an option to reboot, and that's what I did. It came back up, it let me know that the hard drive had not been formatted, which I already knew, so now I just need to probably go into here under Setup Wizard again. Yeah, and it'll walk me through the setup steps. Which we have already done. So we can just blast through this. Okay, there's the hard drive. Now the hard drive shows up. So since it has not been formatted, please select a hard drive. Oh, here we go, format. Check the box, hit the format. There we go. And now that'll format. So the hard drive is now formatted, and we can move on from there. Alright, there's the screen to scan in for the phone clamps, which we've already done. And again, you can right click here and get the drop down. So now I need to figure out how to add the cameras into the system. So one cool feature here with the monitor is this button here. When you push it, it just makes the monitor go to sleep. The system is still functioning. When you push it again, the monitor wakes up. So after the hard drive is installed, if you did it with the system running, you need to reboot the system, or it won't recognize the hard drive. And if you did it with the system shut down, then it should recognize the hard drive. But in any event, you always hit the right mouse click there, brings up that menu. To reboot, you hit Exit System, it gives you the option to reboot. After you reboot, if you need to see your hard drive, you go into System Setup, come over here to Hard Drive Setup, and it will show your hard drive. And if it has not been formatted, you will want to format it. Now, as far as adding the cameras, the 4 cameras that come with the system are already paired with it, so there really isn't a whole lot to do. It should be plug and play. But if you have previously existing cameras, which I had 3 of them that I added to the system, you have to first take the little panel off here, and then there's a reset button that you push, which resets the camera, and then you go in here into the video manager and go through the steps. All of this is covered quite clearly right here in the manual. This manual will be your best friend. It answers all your questions. I was surprised how much it covers, but it really covers all the different situations for adding cameras and getting the system going. As far as range goes, to pick up your Wi-Fi, it's really all over the map. There's so many variables, building construction, the thickness of the walls, things like that. They all play into how well your Wi-Fi signal will be picked up. But just for an example, this camera here is at the front of my house, which is a good 150 feet away, and it's going through one layer of brick. These two cameras are right here in front of me. This one's just outside the wall. This one here is about 100 feet away, and it's picking them up just fine. So a lot of that, again, just depends on, I see that one there just kind of fell out, so that signal is pretty weak. But normally this unit here will be up in the house where all the cameras should be able to connect just fine. They do supply this little range extending antenna, which you basically, if you mount the camera outside the wall and you're having an issue, you can basically poke a hole through the wall, put this camera inside the room so that the base unit here can get the signal to the antenna, and the antenna will get it to the camera. So this antenna sort of replaces this one right here. Now there's also a repeater function that's covered quite clearly in the manual. Again, I refer back to the manual, but you can take your camera that has a strong signal, and if you have a camera that's a little further away that has a weak signal, you can use that to boost the signal from this camera to that one. It'll bounce it from that camera to that one. So that's a nice feature too. You can read up about that in the manual. And the final thing here about connectivity is each one of these cameras has an Ethernet port available. So if you do have the convenience of an Ethernet cable close by your camera and you have some issues with Wi-Fi, you have that as an option too to hook up. Again, all that is covered in the manual on how to set that up. So now let's say you want to turn the alarm on or off for one of the cameras. So you right click in the main screen, you go to System Setup, and then you look over here to the left, you've got General, Time, Hard Drive, and Air. That's when you're in general mode here. But what you want is Channel Setup. Channel Setup, each channel represents a camera. So you click on that, and that gives you the options over here now. And what you want is Video Detection. You click on Video Detection, and then again the channel represents each camera. So if we want to turn the alarm off for camera 4, for example, channel 4, we select it, and then you come down here, and the IPC alarm is what you select. So there, if I hit apply, now that alarm is enabled. So when you walk by it, you'll get the audio alarm, and if you uncheck it, then you've disabled the audio alarm for that particular camera. And you can do that for each one of the cameras. You can control them individually. Now let's say you want to be able to control the spotlight. Maybe you have one of the cameras that you really don't want the spotlight coming on. So you might think it's right here in channel setup, but it's actually not. So you want to get out of the channel setup, go back to your main screen, right click, and it's actually here under color adjust. That is where you set the spotlight, and it's down here, this little window that pops up, and it's down here under IR cut. I've got this one in smart mode, but this is where you select the different modes, and you can read up in the manual what each one of these do. But this is where you would actually turn your spotlight off or on. You can change the functionality there. So when you fire up the PC app and log in, it automatically loads the first 4 channels there, but you can bring the others up here very quickly. And of course this is the one that I don't have a camera for, so I have 7 of the 8 channels populated. But you can go in there and watch previously recorded video. This is a live view here, but it's not too bad for a PC app. The phone app is more polished, but this isn't bad. So when you want to watch video being played back, you can select up to 4 channels at a time to view. And then I've got the speed kicked up here. The highest speed is ×8. So you can really speed through your videos to scan for some activity if you're looking for something. So up here is where you select the date. Over here is when you select the channel and the time. You can filter by time or by sensor activity or by motion, depending upon how you have the camera set up. So it's a really nice feature there. Alright, so I'm going to open this door and you'll see the spotlight kick on, and then you'll hear the alarm. So you can see how bright the spotlight is, and of course you can hear the alarm, but the spotlight really lights the room up.
So this is an example of the intercom system and how it works. You can talk to somebody through the camera and they can talk back. So you can say something like, go ahead and leave the packages at the side door.
Okay, thanks.
So this new system from YESKAMO, this NVR system here, it comes with 4 cameras, and you have the ability to add up to 4 more for a total of 8. You got a 16-inch color IPS monitor screen here. You do have to supply your own hard drive that fits in the back. You've got an extra, you got 2 USB ports actually. One of them, you use the included mouse, which is a nice feature. But the extra USB port is so that you can put a flash drive in there and you can download video that's saved on the hard drive to a flash drive so you can transfer it around if you need to. Wi-Fi range on this, I found it to be very acceptable. Right now my cameras are all about 150 feet away, and I can pick up most of them. The ones that are really far, of course, signal gets weaker. You can also plug your cameras in to an Ethernet cable also, so if your Wi-Fi is a little sketchy and the cameras are too far away. You've got a repeater ability, so if you have cameras that are at varying distances, you can set up a repeater to project the signal to the weaker cameras that are getting a weaker signal. But for $369, I've had no problems with it. Great little system. The responsiveness is right there, especially with the phone app. Very rarely do I ever have any issues with the delay, and that's usually just because of the cellular network or the Wi-Fi system I'm on. So again, great system from YESKAMO, $369. Thanks for watching.